On a single afternoon in southern Italy, more than 2,200 years ago, a Roman army of about 80,000 men walked onto a flat, dusty plain and was almost entirely destroyed. Estimates of the dead run from 48,000 to 70,000 in one day. It remained the bloodiest single day of battle in Western history for the next 2,000 years. The army that did it was smaller. It was outnumbered by roughly 3 to 2. It was far from home, it had no reinforcements coming, and it had been living off enemy land for 2 years. Its commander was 30 years old, blind in one eye, and had already beaten 3 Roman armies in 2 years. His name was Hannibal Barca. What happened at Cannae is still taught in military academies today, because it is generally considered the most perfect tactical victory ever achieved by anybody, anywhere. And what makes it worth telling is not the killing. It is that Hannibal won this battle before it started, by understanding exactly how his enemy thought and building a trap out of it. And that he then won every remaining battle in the war and lost it anyway, which is the part almost nobody remembers. To understand Cannae, you need to know why Rome was already terrified of this man, and that begins 2 years earlier, with one of the most reckless marches in military history. In 218, Hannibal took an army out of Spain, crossed southern France, and then took it over the Alps, in autumn, with war elephants. He lost enormous numbers on the way. Ancient sources suggest he came down into Italy with fewer than half the men he started with, and only a handful of elephants, which should have been a disaster. Instead, within months, he destroyed a Roman army at the river Trebia by luring it across freezing water at dawn on an empty stomach. The following spring, he did it again at Lake Trasimene, marching his army into hills above a narrow lakeside road and waiting in morning fog. A Roman army walked into that fog in column, strung out along the road, and never got the chance to form a line. It was the single worst ambush Rome had ever suffered. Rome then did something genuinely wise and deeply unpopular. It appointed a dictator, an old senator named Fabius Maximus, who looked at the situation and decided to stop fighting. His strategy was to shadow Hannibal everywhere, cut his supplies, take the high ground, and never under any circumstances accept a pitched battle. It worked. The Romans hated it. They nicknamed him Cunctator, the delayer, and they did not mean it kindly. To a Roman, refusing battle while an enemy burned your farms was close to cowardice. And here is the thing Hannibal understood better than the Roman Senate did. Fabius was winning. Slowly, invisibly, and without glory, but he was winning. Which meant Hannibal's real problem was not the Roman army, it was Roman patience, so he needed the Romans to lose it. So he burned his way south through the richest farmland in Italy in full view and waited for Rome to run out of self-control. It took about a year. In 216, Rome elected 2 new consuls and raised the largest army it had ever put in the field. Modern estimates put it around 80,000 men. That is a genuinely enormous force for the ancient world, and Rome built it specifically to end the problem in one afternoon by simply being too big to beat. The 2 consuls were Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus. Varro was aggressive and wanted a battle. Paulus was cautious and did not. And because Rome distrusted concentrated power more than it distrusted confusion, the 2 consuls held supreme command on alternate days. Read that again, because it decides everything that follows. The most powerful army Rome had ever assembled changed its mind about strategy every 24 hours. Hannibal did not need to guess which consul would give him his battle. He only needed to wait for the right day of the week. So he moved his army to a place called Cannae, seized the Roman supply depot there, and camped on a flat open plain beside the river Aufidus in full view. Now look at that ground, because it is the first move of the trap. It is completely flat, completely open, and it has no hills, no woods, and no fog, which looks like the safest possible ground for the larger army. No ambush is possible, nothing can be hidden, numbers should simply win. Paulus argued against it precisely because it was flat. Flat ground is perfect for cavalry, and Hannibal's cavalry was better than Rome's by a wide margin. He was overruled on Varro's day. On the 2nd of August, in the summer heat, the Roman army formed up on the plain, and Hannibal came out to meet it. And the Romans looked across at his formation and saw something that must have looked like a gift. His line was bowed forward in the center, curving toward them like the back of a crescent. A bulging center is what happens when a commander is overconfident and lets his best troops run ahead. It is the classic signature of a line about to break in the middle. Except, Hannibal had put it there deliberately, and he had staffed it deliberately too, with his weakest troops, Gallic and Spanish infantry, lightly armored and told to give ground. His best troops, the African heavy infantry, he put on the two ends of the line and held them back, out of the fight, facing inward. Those men were wearing Roman armor, stripped from the dead at Trasimene the year before, which means from a distance, they did not look like the enemy at all. And on both wings he massed his cavalry, which is the arm the Romans were weakest in, on the one kind of ground where cavalry can do the most damage. Now put the two plans side by side. Rome intends to mass its infantry very deep and punch straight through the center. That is the entire Roman plan. And Hannibal has built a formation whose center is designed to be pushed in. He is not defending the middle, he is offering it. The battle opens the way Roman battles usually open. The heavy infantry advances, hits the Carthaginian center, and starts pushing it back, exactly as planned. The Gauls and Spaniards give ground slowly. They do not break and run, which would end the plan. They fall back, step by step, holding together, which is genuinely one of the most difficult things an army can do. Retreating without breaking, under pressure for a long time, is harder than attacking. Hannibal rode along that center himself, in the fighting line, for the entire time it was collapsing, which is probably the only reason it did not actually collapse. Meanwhile, the Romans are winning. Every Roman in that center can see the enemy line bending back in front of them, and they push harder and deeper into the gap. And every step forward packs them tighter. The deeper the Roman center advances, the narrower the space it occupies, and the more men are pressed in behind it. Now the wings. On the Roman right, the heavy Carthaginian cavalry hits the Roman horse and breaks it in a very short time. On the Roman left, the Numidians do the same thing more slowly, by refusing to close, wheeling away, and coming back, until the Roman cavalry there simply falls apart. And here is the moment the battle stops being a battle. A victorious cavalry force almost always chases the enemy off the field. It is the natural thing to do, and it is very hard to stop. Hannibal's cavalry did not chase. They turned around, rode the length of the field behind the Roman army, and hit the Roman infantry in the back. At the same moment, the African heavy infantry on both ends, who had not fought at all yet, turned inward and closed on both Roman flanks. Which means the largest army Rome had ever assembled was now completely surrounded, on open ground, by an army smaller than itself. And the thing that killed most of them was not weapons, it was compression. Men in the middle of that mass could not raise their arms, could not turn, and could not get out. It took hours. Ancient accounts describe a Carthaginian army becoming exhausted from the work of it, and stopping to rest, and starting again. By evening it was over. One consul, Paulus, was dead. So were around 80 Roman senators and 29 military tribunes. Varro escaped. Hanni is the reason military historians talk about a battle of annihilation, because this is the rare case where the phrase is literal. According to Livy, Hannibal's cavalry commander Maharbal urged him to march on Rome immediately and said the city could be dining with him in 5 days. Hannibal refused, and Maharbal is supposed to have said the line that has followed Hannibal for 2,000 years. You know how to win a victory, but not how to use one. Whether he was right is still argued. Hannibal had no siege equipment, no secure supply line, and Rome had walls and a population that had just been given a very good reason to fight to the end. What Rome actually did is the most important part of this whole story. It refused to ransom its prisoners. It refused to negotiate. It reportedly forbade the public use of the word peace. Then it raised new legions from whoever was left, including men who had been slaves the week before, and went straight back to the Fabian strategy of refusing to fight him. Hannibal stayed in Italy for another 13 years. He was never beaten there, and in all that time he never took Rome, and he was never sent enough men to try. Meanwhile, a young Roman officer who had survived Cannae as a teenager spent years studying exactly how it had been done to him. His name was Scipio. He rebuilt the Roman army around flexibility rather than mass, took the war to Africa, and in 202 he met Hannibal at Zama. and beat him, using flexibility, better cavalry, and a formation designed specifically to survive the thing Hannibal did at Cannae, which is the quiet lesson underneath all of this. Cannae is the most perfect battle ever fought, and it decided nothing at all. Every general since has studied it. Schlieffen built a German war plan around trying to repeat it on the scale of a whole country. It is still on the syllabus at West Point. And the thing they are all still studying is not really how to kill 80,000 men in an afternoon. It is how a man that good at winning battles managed to lose the war.